closing ceremony will be chaired by our two respected personalities. Dr. Dinesh Devkota, who also does not need any further introduction, whom you already know already. So take the stage on the dais, please. Also, Comrade Meena Menon, who also does not need any additional introduction. Also, we have requested Honorable Member of the European Parliament, Ms. Julie Ward, to be one of the speakers reflecting on the deliberations over 3 days' time. Okay, Julie, so take your seat on the right. Also, we have requested Comrade Roland Kulke from Transform Europe, although he comes from Germany, and Germany has a big say in Europe, and he will also share his impression about the conference. So, welcome Roland on dais. I forgot to mention Julie is from UK Labour Party. Two gentlemen representing two clusters. From Peace and Security Cluster, Mr. Amar Ali Jan, who will read out the declaration from the Peace and Security Cluster meetings. And also we have requested Professor Dr. Sarath Wanta, who was the chair of the last session, one of the chairs, to read out the declaration from Social Justice Cluster. Both of these two gentlemen will be sitting on the dais. So where is Mr. Amar Ali Jan? Please, I request you to be on the dais. So without further delay, we have also another gentleman who will be sending you off, everyone, by giving vote of thanks for your active, effective, meaningful participation in the conference. Mr. Milan Dharel, one of the organizers of this conference, to be seated on the dais. Now, we have also put, in fact, Javier Benito Giruga. Is he here? Anybody knows him? So sorry, because he's still traveling. He had a travel program plan. I mean, he could not be connected with his connecting flights somewhere. So he will be arriving today. He has, so far I know, he must have arrived at the airport, but he is not yet here. If he comes, we will give him time to speak because he is so committed for this conference. And also we were thinking to invite Charles Santiago. I don't know how many people you know him. He is also the member of parliament in Malaysia, and he was also supposed to be here, but he could not manage. That was the thing. And also we missed another very vibrant leader of APA, Mr. Farooq Tari, because of his some family-related issues at home. He could not join us in this conference. So our best wishes to all of them who could not really make with us, and hope we'll be able to get them in our future gatherings. So with this, I would like first to read out the declarations of the Social Justice Cluster, and I would like to invite Professor Dr. Sarath Wanta to really read it out clearly, concisely, and without leaving any unspoken.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sarwaraj. I think this draft was prepared by a committee and discussed, and this draft is still open for the inputs, and we'll have still some time to finalize it. I'll read out as it is prepared. And we are very sorry that we couldn't print it out and distribute to all. Therefore, there is no option that you should just listen to me. International Conference on Universal Social Protection and Labor, organized by Asia Europe People's Forum, Social Justice Cluster, Nepal partners. Kathmandu, course from 4 to 6 April 2019. We, the participants of the International Conference on Universal Social Protection and Labor, held in Kathmandu from 4 to 6 April 2019, to review and reflect on the current situations prevalent in our societies and develop strategies for the future course, reaffirmed our vision, mission, to establish society ensuring social protection, social justice, security and peace. Realizing that socio-political circumstances and the level of wealth accumulation and development in Europe and Asia are very different, as well between as within our respective sub-regions. Understanding the fact that there is one capitalist logic at work, free trade agreements, neoliberalism and austerity, worsened by protectionism, a rising population and declining democratic principles with similar consequences in both regions. Recognizing that despite that Asia being the most dynamic region in the world, with 2-decade-long strong economic growth, rising productivity and high employment ratios, deep-rooted structural challenges remain. Still 500 million workers live in abject poverty. 1 billion are faced with vulnerable conditions of employment. 2 of every 3 workers are stuck in the informal sector, and weekly hours worked are the world's highest ratio in the region. Acknowledging the rising protest as well as populism in Europe as a response to growing nationalism, slowing of economic growth, high unemployment, rising inequality and fear of robotization, rising non-standard employment and declining job quality, decoupling wages from productivity due to the pushback of trade unions and collective bargaining, deregulation of labor markets, and liberalization of capital markets. Realizing the challenges of the digital revolution, which will fundamentally alter the labor markets, threat to livelihood by the digital economy because of the platformization of the whole economy, merger of manufacturing and the internet industry at the national level, and growing attacks on trade unions. Similarly, acknowledging that without social justice and peace, humanity can't stay inside the planetary boundaries, and the world will turn into a hothouse without a truly sustainable and earth-friendly metabolism of our societies. There cannot be peace and social justice. Further, appreciating the efforts of people in Asia and Europe to make the society with equity, justice, peace and harmony, and reinforcing our trust in Global Charter for Social Protection Rights for all and by all as a guideline to work on the implementation of all economic and social rights, including public services, as a gateway to environment rights, and it requires democracy and popular participation, making links to all important progressive social movements. We, the participants of the conference, urge to redefine labor and free from capital, since the logics of accumulation and profit maximization are not compatible with the transition towards a more sustainable way of life. We urge to generate a new economic thinking based on the priority of reproduction, a crucial issue in order to connect different struggles and movements. We also urge to counter emergence of re-interclass of democratization of economic life, condition of social justice, and to establish and promote regional and global learning centers for education and generation of new knowledge needed to enrich our social movement based on empirical evidences. We also urge to establish and strengthen campaigns and networks among the people of the regions, engage in the political and social dialogue based on strong trade unions, and based on discussion, engage on discussion on how to create the changes we need and want, for greater solidarity, for united struggles, movements, and people-to-people cooperation and coordination. And finally, we also urge to realize and materialize the Global Charter for Social Protection Rights. We believe that any move towards social justice is social protection to be understood in an emancipatory and transformative way. That's the Kathmandu declaration of this cluster. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all the organizers, and just to briefly say that it was a wonderful experience being part of this cluster, and it's good to know that despite this world that we inhabit, which has so much suffering, there's so many people all over the world who are thinking and practically fighting for a better world. And I think these kinds of conferences really allow us to connect with each other and create an axis of hope out of the pessimism that exists in the world. So thank you a lot to all the organizers. You've done a great service to those who are fighting for a better world. So this statement again is open to debate and open to change, but these are some of the main points that we have finalized, and I'll begin reading the statement now. Peace and Security Cluster of AEPF met in Kathmandu on 4th-6th April 2019. The discussions analyzed how the rise of right-wing populism is making a more insecure and less peaceful world through the use of chauvinistic identity politics to get political support and mobilize people for an increase and mobilize people. Sorry about that. In an increasing number of countries, governments are using authoritarian and fascistic methods to consolidate and expand their power. It's especially worrying that right-wing forces work by criminalization of migrants, suppressing social movements, denying gender equality, and rejecting multilateralism. The tactic of the right-wing populism is to displace and reject the progressive and alternative discourse that arose in response to people's demands after the 2008 global crisis that questions the former hegemonic neoliberal globalization. We've identified military spending, arms proliferation, financing of arms companies, and the military-industrial complex as key actors that influence governments to make its business more profitable. The choice of militarization as a strategy for national security is a political decision to militarize security, to securitize every aspect of life that can be susceptible of being militarized. Peace and security is not the patrimony of the military industry and conservative ideologies. There's a need for creating a progressive discourse about peace and security, critical of militarization. Another security is possible and necessary. Right-wing populism use the following issues to mobilize people. They want to reorganize society and separate those they consider impure and outsiders. These can be migrants, LGBT, dissenters, women, drug dependents, religious minorities, Dalits, indigenous communities. They focus on Islamophobia, all these seen as threats and national risks. And civil society are increasingly being labeled terrorists. The beneficiaries of right-wing populism are state actors, oligarchs, ruling and military elites who benefit from neoliberalism. Right-wing populism use narrative of corruption and aspirations, and that structure is not working, so they reframe social justice. They do not want to end inequality, they want to create and rest upon new inequality and conflict. The Peace and Security Cluster puts forward a framework for a politics of peace and security to contest right-wing populism. These include, so there is a need to shift from a state-fused national security concept and discourse to rights-based human security based on ensuring the freedom from fear, which means civil and political rights, and freedom from want, social and economic rights. We call for an immediate end to the genocide, repression, and forced displacement of the Rohingya community in Myanmar. All states should support a safe, voluntary, and dignified return of the Rohingya, as also a just resettlement of these forcefully displaced communities. It is important to unite as many internal factions in each country to counter right-wing populism. There is a need to incorporate different tendencies and movements at different levels to recapture autonomous institutions. It is critical to attract young activists to these platforms and especially young women and men from excluded communities. The role of progressive education and information, both from internal sources nationally, regionally, and internationally, is critical. Training and developing youth against right-wing mobilization is integral to this process. There's an urgent need to foster a next generation youth advocates and campaigners for peace. We need informal spaces of education which can disseminate ideas of peace and tolerance by countering the exclusive and hate-filled discourse of the far right. We need to develop understanding, provide arguments in comparison between countries as resources against right-wing populism, so circulation of ideas and tactics. We need to map the connections between right-wing populisms and their discourses internationally. We need to show the connections and root causes and reasons for migrations in order to fight the phobias used by right-wing populisms. We have to continue building solidarities of South-South as well as North-South and build links with progressive movements internationally. That's the last page. We cannot just frame migrants and others in a moral framework of human rights, but also reframe issues in material conditions with internationalist perspectives and use of international law. There's a need to showcase best practices, specific strategies, and people's programs and build international guidelines for these. It was felt that forces of the left and liberals had abandoned the sphere of religion and culture, while the right wing have framed themselves as upholders and interpreters of religion and culture. It is proposed that the left liberals go beyond buzzwords like secularism and multiculturalism and include with these especially the lived experiences and issues of ordinary people. The everyday issues of people's lives, from water, employment, equality, and class struggles that right-wing populism cannot deliver, should be part of the mass actions of people's groups. The representation and multilateral institutions must be improved as they remain exclusive. There are concrete policies that we need to critique: blasphemy laws, discriminatory citizenship laws, criminalization of migrants and those who support migrants and dissenters, and the attempt to dehumanize them. Government policies need to be implemented that support and are silent, need to be condemned that support and are silent on vigilante violence. We condemn and critique the extremist and fundamentalist movements, who use the other. The human values of the other, which means, we condemn and critique extremist and fundamentalist movements. We must promote human values, which means accepting multicultural thinking and accepting the other, which includes migrants and refugees. In Europe, the fundamentalist movement mainly consists of far right, but in Asia, religious extremist movements are the dominant form of right wing. We must recognize the role of mass media, especially social media platforms, to whip up xenophobia and legitimize racist discourse. We call for digital literacy programs to counter hate speech and promote an internet for the common good. We condemn the withdrawal of the Philippines government from the RCC, which threatens the lives of people, human rights defenders, and all those struggling for freedom. We call upon the international community to take all diplomatic measures to defend the people in the Philippines from this new fascist government. Thank you very much.
First of all, if I should reflect on the last days, first of all, I have to say that I'm deeply grateful for the invitation, because I come back to Europe with a huge package of visiting cards. So I'm working for Transform Europe. It's the political organization of the European Left Party. And I can promise you, I don't keep these networks, the contacts to me. I will distribute it in my own networks. So this is one of the very necessary side effects of a meeting like this. And I really have to say, it's been a while that I have met so many great people, like all you here in the last days. It was a pleasure. And I will sleep long after I have left Kathmandu. But it was not only wonderful people I have met, it was a dense intellectual atmosphere, and I really can say AEPF at its best. I'm very grateful to the organizers. It's been marvelous. I can say this wholeheartedly because since 10 years I'm doing my own conferences, and if I would achieve 10% of this, I would be more than glad. Yeah. We are going home now in the next days, and the question is, will spread to at least 2 continents. My question is, what do we take back? And the world is burning. This is clear. And it's really not getting better. We have to think about the next steps. How can we politicize our network? Our enemies are doing this. I always call them the dark force. And they are. A few days ago, I stumbled across a media report. One of the most influential, hardcore neoliberal, pro-capitalist, exploiters-oriented think tanks in Brussels, called Bruegel, has published a paper where one of the leading intellectuals, organic intellectuals of Europe, asked the question, was Lenin right? Was Lenin right when he said that maybe we are living in times of imperialism? This bourgeois scientist says, yes, he was totally right. So he is citing from Lenin and says, yes, all the points are now stronger than ever before. So bourgeoisie has understood times of imperialism is here. So he says, his question is not how can we end this time, but he says, okay, we have to accept it. Europe must become an imperial power. So this is one of the leading think tanks in Brussels. They are based in Brussels, yeah, and they have what they are writing is being discussed next day in the council and in the commission. So have a look at the preamble of the wonderful Nepali constitution, the new one. It starts with one central idea: people's sovereignty. People's sovereignty you can read in two ways, at least I will do. People sovereignty, the sovereignty of each of us, but also of the nation. And these two sovereignties are under threat. They are under threat by an ecological crisis which has not been produced by people like the Nepalese people, but by my own people. Coming from Germany, I can really say this. So it's an international threat. It can be, it's my obligation and my party in Germany to attack our own economic system. But it's a threat which is transnational, first threat. Second one, digital revolution. We discussed this also. We have to attack this also with counter-proposals transnationally. I'm very grateful to Comrade Rayan in the last session mentioning the failed re-regulation of the international financial system. The next financial crisis will come and our states have no money any longer and no means to secure us. And therefore, I was very grateful to Francine mentioning that our concept of social protection is not based on the financial ministers. This is something we have to fight for and very fast. Last point, the trade policy. I can only urge Nepalese comrades and others, we must work together against the horrible free trade agreements pursued by our own governments, at least in Europe. So these are points where say, okay, where we need to work together in the next years. Thanks a lot.
And also finishing the message given time frame. Now, I would like to request MEP, Member of the European Parliament, Ms. Julie Ward, who's from the Labour Party in the UK. Ms. Julie.
Usually in the European Parliament, we only, still not, yeah, you got it now. Third time lucky. In the European Parliament, we only usually get 1 minute speaking time, okay? I am going to take longer than that, but not much longer. So first of all, I just want to say a really big thank you for inviting me. For me, there is a thread now for me in my life, because I have tried throughout my mandate to make relationships with people and organisations and stay with issues. And that's been important. So the fact that I was with some of you in Barcelona last year, and I'm here again with some of the same people, but also some new friends, some new comrades, is very important for me. I don't know what my future holds, but I really want to stay connected with you, because I cannot abandon the struggle for social justice and the struggle for peace. And this is something that I have been able to do as an elected political representative, but that I will do anyway. So I just thank you for the generosity, for inviting me and allowing me to be a fly on the wall, really, to watch your process, and also to sit in the room and put my hand up sometimes, and to hear my own words, in fact, spoken in the declaration. So I'm really thrilled and honoured and very humbled by that. I've observed an extraordinary process, because this is democracy in action. And to watch the discussions, the rigorous questioning, and it goes on after we have the cluster meetings. It's still happening when we are eating, when we are having breakfast, we're still having these discussions with each other. And it's rigorous. I really like that. I think it's important that we are not afraid to question each other. That has to be part of the process. And too many people are afraid of that, and particularly when they become elected, very afraid. They become what I call fence sitters, actually. Yeah? So they're waiting to fall either one side or the other, because they're more concerned about their career than they are about really understanding and learning and doing the right thing. So thank you for allowing me to participate in an extraordinary democratic process. I want to maybe make a few criticisms. Maybe while I was here, I went outside of the hotel twice, or I met people from outside of this circle, and neither of them knew about this forum. So I want us to open our arms even more to the people who are not here, okay, and think about who's not in the room. Because this forum, this circle has to be bigger, has to be more inclusive. And I would say there's not enough young people involved, okay? And I would say that, wouldn't I? Because I spent my whole life working with young people, empowering them, encouraging them, working with children, in fact, from 3 years old up to the age of 25, 30 on democratic processes as part of summer schools that we run. So I would say, make the youth forum, okay? You have to have a youth forum, and you need to be doing that, because many of us are older. We have to have young people to hand over the baton to. But more than that, they can teach us. They're teaching us now, because they're out on the streets, okay? They're not waiting to be given power anymore, waiting for change. So I would say that's something this forum needs to do. It's great to see so many women here, but sometimes there was not enough women on the panels, and Anita pointed that out yesterday. We are doing something in my political group in the European Parliament. We do panel watch now. If it's not a gender balance panel, we call it out, okay? Now, Anita did do that yesterday because she was the only woman on a panel. But you have to be aware of that. Whoever's organising the panels, you have to go, is this balanced? Is it diverse? Okay, does it represent the diversity that I see in front of me now, the participants? Because it should. And you should seek out those people to make that representative if it's not. Okay, that's very important. I was reading the Global Charter, and I was very interested in the sentence, social protection must consist of material and immaterial elements. And I really want to ask what the immaterial elements are, because I don't think we're having much conversation about that. And for me, I didn't speak about arts and culture in my keynote speech. It was in my notes, but I had to cut my speech short. But I would have talked about arts and culture. It's very important for us to have fulfilled lives, to have access to arts and culture. But arts and culture is a tool for change and empowerment. It's a tool for social transformation. It's a tool for to create transferable skills. Not that I want to always talk about the market, but for me, it is one of the things that goes across all the different committees that exist in the Parliament, all the different thematic things that we would be talking about. And I think it is one of the most important immaterial things that you should think about when we're trying to push forward this Charter for Social Protection. But then I was wondering what else might be those immaterial elements. You mentioned dignity, and that's important. But what about well-being, community, comradeship, companionship, freedom from fear, enjoyment of the natural world, generosity of spirit? Should we have maybe some conversations about those things and add to that list? In the Culture Committee in the European Parliament, we're often talking about cultural heritage, and many people understand that only to be bricks and mortar, buildings, tangible things. And we have to constantly remind our fellow members that cultural heritage is also intangible. Culture is intangible too. It's the languages that we speak, the dialects that we use in our locality. It's our traditions, okay? And also it is not fixed. So culture is always changing. It really doesn't respect any boundaries. Young people are mashing it up. They're putting together old things with new things, and they don't necessarily respect any of those boundaries. So also to be very open to what culture might be in the future. It was very good that we talked about the digital revolution. We are very obsessed by that, okay, in the European Parliament. We're trying to make some rules for it. And within the trade union movement, we are also very aware of that. And that certainly was something that also plays across both the thematic hubs that you had. Because I live in a region where we make nuclear Trident submarines. And I am an anti-nuclear campaigner. I'm a member of the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. And this is a big problem for us because in the trade union movement, they want to keep Trident because they want to keep the jobs. And actually what we have to do is to demonstrate that in fact all work is going to become different in the future. And that we have to have policies of diversification for those industries which are not needed anymore. And I would beg to say that we do not need Trident submarines. We plan never to use them. So why are we making them? And in an era of austerity, when we can't afford to keep our schools and our hospitals open, when we don't have enough money for women's refuges, for legal aid, for a whole range, we've got old people in poverty not knowing whether or not they should turn on the fire or whether they should feed themselves. We certainly cannot afford weapons that we are never hoping to use. So I will finish. So the idea of the digital revolution is very important. But I would like to give you some words to think about. And one of them is diversification. Diversification is certainly a policy, an industrial policy that we're looking at in the labour movement. And it is not new because some young apprentices 50 years ago, when their jobs were under threat, were encouraged by Tony Benn to come up with an industrial diversification policy about making socially useful goods. We need to return to that. And we are reviving that in the labour movement in the UK. It's called the Lucas Plan. And I would really urge you to look at that, to invite the people who dreamed this up to come and speak to you. They're still talking about it. They're in their 70s. It didn't happen 50 years ago, right? They made the plan, but the government never took it on board. But they never stopped talking about it. And many of the things that they talked about 50 years ago are even more relevant now. And the other phrase I'd like to give to you is occupational literacy. We talk about digital literacy and media literacy. And many people do not know how to spend their time well, or they're forced into spending their time badly because they're in poorly paid work and insecure work, and they don't have quality time. And I was introduced to this concept of occupational literacy in the mental health and well-being field. But I have applied it to every single group I can think about, and it is relevant. I tried to persuade the Commission to do a European occupational literacy strategy. They didn't know what I was talking about. So I'm ahead of my time, okay? I want some partners to explore this idea with. So if you're interested, I would be very interested too. So I'm going to end there. Just thank you so much for letting me be part of an extraordinary, amazing, life-changing experience. You know, I might still be an MEP in a week's time, I might not, but I hope I will always be a friend to the Asia-Europe People's Forum.
And we work as, rather not just for this conference, but for the last many years, on the movements for the freedom and the movements for justice and equality. I remember that in 2006, first I attended the Asia-Europe People's Forum in Finland. And at that time, we have a really good people's movement. I still remember there was a plan that we do the protest against Arroyo and Sinabatra. And we were kind of under the security threat as well, and some of us have been evacuated from our hostels to save ourselves. So since 2006, the Asia-Europe People's Forum has become much more stronger. The solidarity has become much more strong. The exchanges of views, the ideas, the perspectives, we have both widened and deepened our movements. Yes, it is true that we may not be able to win all those neoliberals and chronic capitalist forces, but it is also true that we have been able to successfully mobilize young populations and people against all types of fundamentalism and sectarian entitlements. And hosting this event in Nepal is definitely a proud moment for all of us. Because in 70 cases struggle, we have a stable, progressive government in this country where the Communist Party was banned during the democratic era in 1950s. And now the Communist Party is in rule. So it is a moment for us to rejoice that success. And not only to rejoice, because we have seen quite often the progressive forces themselves, when they're reaching the power, they sometimes get deviated and mislead. So I think this event has been successful to alert our leaders as well. How the world is watching a progressive government in this beautiful country. And we are not just accountable to the people in Nepal. We are also responsible to the all progressive, struggling people around the world to inspire, to sustain the movement, and to engage with them. And I think this conference has become a very good success to build that solidarity and to continue our struggle in coming days. Some people ask me why we have two declarations. And I said, yes, we do have two declarations because the contents has to be reinforced. But we have two declarations also to demonstrate the interconnectedness of the social protection and the peace and security. Without social protection, no peace and no security. And just with the neoliberal idea of social protection, such as universal basic income ideas, we may not achieve a peaceful destinations later on. We have observed very brilliant minds discussing, sharing, exchanging views and ideas here. Influential campaigners, experienced leaders from trade unions, peasants movements, women's rights movements, political field, and all these students and youth movements. There are, of course, a little less number of young people, but to share with Julie that we have more young people got attracted to this forum this time, and we are very happy to welcome all the young people to this movement again, at least from Nepal, and we hope they will carry on this movement in the future as well. One thing I would also second to Julie is that the public media did not support us that much. Why? Why is because it's public media is captured and controlled by the corporate in this country. So whenever we call for the justice issues, protection and fair work concept, they do not follow it. And that's the reason most of the people are denied and deprived of getting this information. But we have alternative campaign and all these things. So this has happened not just because we are here. This has happened with all the hard work of our team, our leaders who have engaged heavily in this process in the last many months. I'd like to thank Anu, Kora, Tina, Mina Menon, Kwang, who is not here, could not make it, but he was heavily engaged. Lisa Clark, who could not make it, she was very much engaged. And Kathy and Chris, who have been always communicating and reminding us about the logistics and these things. The national host team from IITS, on the leadership of Dr. Devkota, Dr. Sarma, Jekji, Prakasi, and all the young secretariat team, they have contributed a lot. I thank you. I thank them very much. They require a year's applause, at least for their hard work, and the Southeastern Solidarity Councils, the co-organizers, GFund, Rural Reconstruction Nepal, Homeless Workers, Rashtriya Dalit Network, FECO Fund, FIAN, and many others. And of course, the participants, discussants, and the presenters. So what I believe, Anu has also given her email address to contact APF, is that this movement, for at least for Nepal, is not the closing, it's the beginning, how we balance and build further solidarity between European and Asian people. Thank you so much once again for your participation.
And there are two chairs. I have tossed a coin. And in that, so it's always ladies toss, you know, so even in this, Meena won that toss. So Meena will speak first, and then Devkota. So Meena?
Dottie had put up these really wicked pictures in which you could only see the flowers. So you're not doing that now. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to take much time because you see, Sarba and I both come from the monolithic party tradition. Democratic centralism reigns. So I have exactly 3 minutes. I will not waste it. I just wanted to say that it's, I mean, if you look at the outcomes of the 3 days deliberations that we've done, I don't think we can only look at what we discussed here or the outcomes of the various discussions, rich as they were. And many of the new ideas, innovative ideas that we saw here, that we discussed, we heard from all over. The whole idea of Asia, Europe bridging on these issues, building struggles together, exchanging experiences. But besides that, I think the important thing is that we came to this country, Nepal, and a country about which maybe we might have read a little bit. For us in South Asia, from various movements, this has been a beacon. Nepal has been a very, very important part of our own political inspiration. And I hope that those who came here from various parts, particularly from Europe, from various parts of Asia, have got an idea of what's been happening in Nepal and the various little things that we can take away from here. When Comrade Prachanda spoke on the first day, he spoke about how if this had happened in some other more visible part of the world, maybe there would have been far more discussion than there has been about what has been happening in Nepal. It's true. It's true. The way that the left has come together rather than split, how many of us can say that in various parts of the world that's what's been happening? Coming together to form a single party, I think that's amazing, and I must congratulate the Nepali comrades for that. It's a very, very hopeful sign. The second thing is the amazing constitution building process that they went through. I'm afraid we couldn't hear too much about that, but we in India and South Asia know about it, that the amazing democratic methodologies that were followed to build this constitution. Yes, of course, there were some voices, especially from Nepal, saying, okay, we have a constitution, we have the rights, but how is that, if that is not implemented? Who knows what might happen? Maybe conflicts might come again, maybe things might go bad again. But that doesn't matter. The fact is that you've set a tradition, you started a tradition of this widespread consultative process to build a constitution. That itself is the Constituent Assemblies of Nepal. I think that has been an amazing thing to learn from. Anyway, I will not take too much time. All I'd like to say is that the AEPF has been a very, very important and very interesting space for Asia, Europe to talk together. Even we might have these resolutions. The resolutions are important, sure, but the live connections between movements, between ideas, I hope we can continue this. I hope we can build more relationships. I hope we can get in touch with more people, more networks in Asia and Europe, and to spread our coming together, to be able to talk together. I'm afraid I don't agree with Julie. I think that the understanding of this gathering was not to make it a very public event. And I'm quite sure that if this was to be a really public event, the comrades here would have made it so public that everyone in the city would have known about it. But that was not the brief that we had, right? This was supposed to be a space where some of us got together. I hope the next time that we come here, and I hope that we do come here again, maybe at AEPF, maybe as various political forces, maybe as mass organizations, people's movements, social movements, we come back here to engage with the people here, with the movements here, with the party here, and to learn more. And if we have done that, we have made a start. And I think that is what the AEPF is really doing, building connections. And I hope we can do a lot more building connections in the future.
I am a public speaker. Are you standing for election somewhere? No. Okay. Thank you, Meena. In fact, AEPF is finally in Nepal. When I knew about AEPF, and there were some email communications, some years back about this AEPF conferences in some countries, asking people to join. And I sent my response. Okay, I am interested to join. I wanted to know what it is, and there was response back. Do you have money? If no money, you cannot come. Then I said no money, so maybe money other people will be there. That was my initial impression. But later on, there was kind of some support from some other networks, and I participated in those events. Now finally, we have been able to organize this event of AEPF, although it is not a complete AEPF. It's only up to clusters, very important clusters, but we've been able to really bring them here. So it is a kind of good news for Nepalese advocates, civil societies, progressive forces, that there are friends who will help us, support us, and also we also support them in their struggles for peace, security, justice, human rights, all these things. So we expanded, AEPF expanded its constituency, and we also got opportunity to get connected with other friends working in similar issues in different countries. So this is a really good opportunity for us. So, finally, we are going to really conclude this session. I would like to request Dr. Dinesh Devkota for his, cheers remarks, as well as for the conclusion or development of this session. And before that, I would like to request our colleagues from the Secretariat, Mr. Tekrana, Mr. Prakash Koirala, Mr. Hardik Adhikari, and Devaka Paudel. Are you here? Can you come in the front, please? So this is our team, and I request all the friends whom I have just taken the name to stand in the front. And in fact, without their support and continuous engagement, this conference will not be really possible. So they really deserve a round of applause and appreciation. And also, Dr. Devkota and myself also are a part of this team. So we also share some very loud ways. And the Nepal organizing team, there are so many friends here. I would like to really give a round of applause to all the friends in that team, okay? Louder, why is it so? So, I am just, making the task easy for the chair. So it's up to now Dr. Devkota for his final remarks and closing of this conference.
First of all, let me congratulate for all of us, including yourself, who have contributed a lot for this fruitful meeting and session's successful accomplishment of our 3 days conference in Kathmandu. I think it has achieved another milestone towards carrying sustained peace, security and social justice in our communities. Learning between Europe and Asia definitely have enriched not only participants, all of us, but also our different actors of societies, including political parties and government, as well as all. In principle, the Nepalese state actors have expressed and obliged to respect, protect and fulfill their duties as per the internationally accepted human rights standards, but in practice, as we have visualized and listened with so many presenters, there are some gaps and areas for improvements. So in this context, acceptance of global charter from the government secretary is the milestone in the sector which he had announced in previous session. The outcomes of the conference from the both clusters, declaration, Kathmandu call, which had just shared between us, has been very much beneficial and also have indicated a roadmap not only for Nepal and substantially for all the concern around the globe. However, it is very pertinent to Nepal and the whole South Asia region because the South Asia regions harbors a significant number of poor people of the world. The societies are divided along the lines of caste and class. Women are treated as a second-grade citizens under the patriarchal feudal mindset. Culture and the subsequent laws have to form in progressive direction. Hope this conference that dwelt on various agendas over the period of 3 days has contributed a lot in developing policies, legislation and institutions with strategies to promote the most urgent demand of social protection and reduce the impacts of anti-people agenda. In fact, I like to note down when Roland Kulke, he mentioned about the politicization of the institutions. But I want to add one word. Politicization with institution is only possible when we have the intellectually enriched with the agenda. So that should be included in my opinion. There are a few take home. I want to have a few points before I conclude. The socio-political circumstances which we have discussed and concluded, socio-political circumstances and the level and degree of wealth accumulation and development in Europe and Asia are very different as well within all respective sub-regions. This is the one take home. It is also a challenge of the digital revolution which will fundamentally alter the labor markets. It's also the big take home message. And there are many more, but I want to have the new economical thinking is necessary to emerge with the priority of reproduction and to natural threat to shape. Another one is, I believe, our global charter, which we ratified for today in our previous session, for social protection rights for all and by all is written as a kind of guideline to work as the implementation of all economic and social rights, including public services. So these are the very good take home. In last, the take home message which we have in Kathmandu Declaration very clearly mentioned is, I want to highlight the one point, learning centers, the idea of learning centers for the young generation with the political movement where knowledge can be generated and important the knowledge to transfer in the young generation with from global and Asia is also very important, and I want to see all much more effectively when we can make the implementation in the future. Last but not least, I would like to thank the organizers, especially AEPF, providing the opportunity for Nepal. And I like to congratulate Nepal partners. Even I appreciate your connectivity with politicians. Your intellectual connectivity has been enriched to make this conference grand success. So Nepal partners, all organizations who join hand with IDS team, I like to congratulate. And you esteemed participants, panelists, session chairs, your intellectuality and your commitment towards the movement has been very much enlightened in every sessions. All the sessions were much more dynamic and very productive in my opinion. So in this context, I wish safe return back home to our foreign delegates. Have a nice time in Kathmandu if you have time. Finally, I like to congratulate and thanks to Dr. Sarwa and Milan Dharelji, who coordinated both clusters to us. And on behalf of myself, I like to say thank you very much for all of you providing me opportunity to be in the opening session as well as closing session. So it's a long way journey. We as a Marxist, we are working for the pro-poor scenario, and still new liberalism needs a lot of good intellectual backups to cut the agenda in the neoliberalism, how we can establish the agenda to the poor people. Socialism and Marxist agenda is a big challenge to us. So coming days we will be even more together. With this, I like to conclude the session, and still we have another important side meeting where our guests are arriving right now. it should be started at 6 o'clock. Very important side meeting with the party foreign leaders, so that we will join in that meeting. But whoever you are not joining in that meeting, I like to say, have a good, let's have the good high tea, snacks together, and I like to say, wonderful conference, and it's a grand success. Let's have the clap for all of us. Congratulations. And session is concluded. Thank you. I like to conclude the session, and still we have another important side meeting where our guests are arriving right now. It should be started at 6 o'clock. Very important side meeting with the party foreign leaders, so that we will join in that meeting. But whoever you are not joining in that meeting, I like to say, have a good, let's have the good high tea, snacks together, and I like to say, wonderful conference, and it's a grand success. Let's have the clap for all of us. Congratulations. And session is concluded. Thank you.